don't know what was in AT this day, but they wasn't having it. I don't know if it was a memo sent out. I don't know what happened, but the Trump administration decided to let CNN and Kaitlyn Clark have it when she tried to come with them condescending. But first, this woman disgracefully calls for someone to take President Trump out without actually saying to, right? This is a growing trend on social media, and don't you think it's a federal crime when they do this? Check this out.
Somebody do it already, please. Please, I'm begging you. Somebody take one for the team. I can't do it anymore. I can't wake up every day. I can't do it anymore.
But you're woke right now. Can't wake up every day. What? Some people literally, okay.
Cannot wait for the day that I wake up and
So you cannot wake up, but you can't wait to wake up. Okay, I'm sorry, y'all.
Can't do it anymore. I cannot wait for the day that I wake up and I see the headlines. I'm throwing a party. You're all invited. Everyone's invited. I need someone to do it. Soon. Now. Please. Somebody do it already.
Yeah, somebody do it. Go to jail. Please. Now. This is a growing trend, as I say. And I'm tired of seeing it, if I'm being quite frank. I'm tired of seeing this, man. People are able to, I mean, she's tiptoeing the lines and she can argue and whatever, yada, yada. However, we see people who are blatantly calling for the assassination of President Trump because of what the media portrays him to be and the brainwashing that has continued surrounding him. Now, here's a clip of President Trump demolishing CNN's Kaitlyn Clark.
Well, Mr. President, you said that if the Supreme Court said someone needed to be returned, that you would abide by that. You said that on Air Force One just a few days ago, and they said that it must be facilitated.
Why don't you just say, isn't it wonderful that we're keeping criminals out of our country? Why can't you just say that? Why do you go over and over? And that's why nobody watches you anymore. You know, you have no credibility. Please go ahead.
President Trump.
Y'all, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. I'm going to play the full clip in a second. But I get tired of watching these mainstream news networks asking the same questions over and over and over in this way and that way. And then also having adequate information and already have responses to support the question that they're already asking. I get a little bit annoyed, too. Let's read a few comments, man. Trump Gunner says President Trump absolutely roasted Kaitlyn Collins. I said Kaitlyn Clark. I've been saying Kaitlyn Clark. Have I been saying Kaitlyn Clark? Oh, well, I ain't starting this video over. Anywho, President Trump absolutely roasted Kaitlyn Collins and CNN. He called their agenda and nailed the truth. Keeping criminals out of the country is a victory, yet they refuse to acknowledge it. The fake news can't handle the facts, and Trump is here to expose their bias every time. Pure fire. And I just exposed that I may have some people already clicked off of this video a couple minutes ago. Like, he said Kaitlyn Clark. Anyhow, it says revoke her White House press pass. She's not a reporter. She's an activist. Nick sort of responded to. There seriously is nobody better at this than President Trump. Somebody said undisputed king of comebacks. Nick Sorda, responded to that by saying that. Now, one of the biggest things Trump has done is unleashing Stephen Miller on the media. Now, let's get some thorough understanding.
I want to correct, I hate to do it, Bill, but I got to correct you on every single thing that you said because it was all wrong. First, we won the Supreme Court case, 9-0. A district court judge said that the president and his administration have to go into El Salvador and extradite one of their citizens, an El Salvadorian citizen, so that would be kidnapping. That we have to kidnap an El Salvadorian citizen against the will of his government and fly him back to America, which would be an unimaginable act and an invasion of El Salvador's sovereignty. So we appealed to the Supreme Court, and it said clearly, no district court can compel the president to exercise his Article 2 foreign powers in any way whatsoever. DOJ called me after that Supreme Court ruling, and they said, this is amazing. We won this case 9-0. We are in excellent standing here. So this has been portrayed wrong for 72 hours in the media. They said the most a court could ever compel you to do would be to facilitate return, which would basically mean if El Salvador voluntarily sends him back, we wouldn't block him at the airport. We would put him back into ICE detention, and then he would be deported either back to El Salvador or somewhere else. The Supreme Court said that is the most the government can be expected to do. So we won the case handily. The misreporting on this has been atrocious.
Okay,
Secondly,
I appreciate
he was
the
not, no, Bill, it's
clarification,
important.
that's the case.
He was not mistakenly sent to El Salvador.
Okay, so do you still
He's an
believe he
illegal
is a
alien
member of
from
MS?
El Salvador. Hold on, this is important. In 2019, he was ordered deported. He has a final removal order from the United States. These are things that no one disputes. Where is he from? El Salvador. Where is he a resident and citizen of? El Salvador. Is he here illegally? Yes. Does he have a deportation order? Yes. Here's the thing. If you are a member of a foreign terrorist organization, you cannot have a withholding order. Since he's in MS-13, there is no withholding order.
You just answered my question.
The gang that he is accused of being persecuted by doesn't exist anymore in El Salvador. The 18th Street gang is gone. So you have an illegal alien from Bill, where are we supposed to send the illegal alien from El Salvador?
You haven't even
to
allowed
what
me
country?
to ask you a question. Are you convinced he is still a member of MS-13? That was your original charge.
Yes. But here's the thing, Bill. Yes, but here, not only am I convinced of it, not only is El Salvador convinced of it, Bill, he's an illegal alien from El Salvador.
It's like they want to defy logic when it comes to everything that Donald Trump and his administration is doing. First of all, this guy was deported in 2019. He came back, got caught again, and you guys, oh, do you believe he's a member of MS-13? Like, come on, bro. Like, in addition to that, dismiss all of the factuals of, Donald Trump and him being a felon and all this other stuff or whatever the case, to try to justify their, reasoning on Donald Trump. But, man, it's just vicious how they would go against their own logic. If somebody's from a certain place and they come here illegally from that certain place, where am I supposed to send them? And then y'all want me to go to another country, snatch somebody up and bring them back? Now, President Trump has multiple members of his administration take turns ripping CNN's Kaitlyn Clark. Collins, after she asked why an alleged MS-13 member was deported to El Salvador, LMAO. Pam Bondi, Stephen Miller, Mark Rubio, as well as Nayib Burke, I don't know how you say that, all ripped the media after Collins asked about releasing an alleged MS-13 member. Y'all, I'm going to put this one on the big screen.
Return the man who your administration was mistakenly deported. The man who was mistakenly deported to El Salvador.
Well, let me ask Pam, would you answer that question?
Sure, President. First and foremost, he was illegally in our country. He had been illegally in our country. And in 2019, two courts, an immigration court and an appellate immigration court, ruled that he was a member of MS-13 and he was illegally in our country. Right now, it was additional paperwork had needed to be done. That's up to El Salvador if they want to return him. That's not up to us. The Supreme Court ruled, President, that if, as El Salvador wants to return him, this is international matters, foreign affairs, if they wanted to return him, we would facilitate it, meaning provide a plane.
So will you return him?
And you are doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank
Stephen Miller, wait a minute. Can you just also respond to that question? Because, it's asked by CNN, and they always ask it with a slant, because they're totally slanted, because they don't know what's happening. That's why nobody's watching them. But would you answer that question also, please?
Yes, gladly. So, as Pam mentioned, there's an illegal alien from El Salvador. So, with respect to you, he's a citizen of El Salvador. So, it's very arrogant even for American media to suggest that we would even tell El Salvador how to handle their own citizens as a starting point. As two immigration courts found that he was a member of MS-13. When President Trump declared MS-13 to be a foreign terrorist organization, that meant that he was no longer eligible under federal law, which I'm sure you know, you're very familiar with the INA, that he was no longer eligible for any form of immigration relief in the United States.
I love how he breaks it, how they're all taking the time to break this down to not only them, but to me as well, you know, in elementary style fashion. Because, I mean, this is what it's going to take to really combat the lies of the mainstream media.
So he had a deportation order that was valid, which meant that under our law, he's not even allowed to be present in the United States and had to be returned because of the foreign terrorist designation. This issue was then, by a district court judge, completely inverted, and a district court judge tried to tell the administration that they had to kidnap a citizen of El Salvador and fly him back here. That issue was raised to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said the district court order was unlawful, and its main components were reversed 9-0 unanimously, stating clearly that neither Secretary of State nor the President could be compelled by anybody to forcibly retrieve a citizen of El Salvador from El Salvador, who again is a member of MS-13, which, as I'm sure you understand, rapes little girls, murders women, murders children, is engaged in the most barbaric activities in the world, and I can promise you, if he was your neighbor, you would move right away.
And then they wanna ask, so are you convinced? I gotta get my mic in a position where I know that I won't disappear on y'all. Hold on, let me see. Think about right here is fine. Probably. Anywho, yeah, it's the fact that they're giving all of this information and providing overwhelming context as to why they're doing what they're doing, but you have the Kaitlyn Clarks of the world just being completely dismissive of that and still just trying to nitpick at this and nitpick at that simply because they just don't like Donald Trump and his administration. They're looking for a negative headline versus being able to look at the positive in which they're doing.
So you don't plan to
But the
ask for
Supreme
it
Court is
to get
asking
it back?
to.
And
that-
what was the ruling in the Supreme Court, Steve? Was it 9-0?
Yes, it was a 9-0
In our favor.
in our favor against the district court ruling, saying that no district court has the power to compel the foreign policy function of the United States. As Pam said, the ruling solely stated that if this individual, at El Salvador's sole discretion, was sent back to our country, that we could deport him a second time.
Well,
No version of this legally ends up with him ever living here because he is a citizen of El Salvador. That is the president of El Salvador. Your questions about it, per the court, can only be directed to him.
I asked
¿Usted lo
President
liberaría,
Bukele,
Presidente
what is
Bukele?
your- can President Bukele weigh in on this? Do you plan to return him?
Well, I guess,
And for the Trump administration,
It's always
how
the
can I return him to the United States? Like, I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, I mean, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
But you can release him inside of Salvador.
Yeah, but I'm not releasing, I mean, we're not very fond of releasing terrorists into our country. I mean, we just turned the murder capital of the world into the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back into releasing criminals so we can go back to being the murder capital of the world? No, that's not going to happen.
Well, they'd love to have a criminal, released into
I mean, there's a fascination.
They would love it.
Yeah.
They're sick. These are sick people. Mark, do you have something to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, Stephen Island, I don't understand what the confusion is. This individual is a citizen of El Salvador. He was illegally in the United States and was returned to his country. That's where you deport people, back to their country of origin. Except for Venezuela, that wasn't refusing to take people back of places like that. I can tell you this, Mr. President. No, the foreign policy of the United States is conducted by the President of the United States, not by a court. And no court in the United States has a right to conduct the foreign policy of the United States. It's that simple. End of story.
Amen to that. You even have the president of El Salvador coming over there to tell him, "Hey, look, man, like I don't even got the power to do what y'all trying to make them do. Like, what is going on here? Like, honestly, where's the logic in what you guys are saying right now? It makes absolutely no sense." But when I seen that clip go on, I couldn't wait to see what Steve, what's his name? I can't even say his name. Scott Jennings. I'm sorry, y'all. First video of the day. We got some kinks, but we gonna roll with it because y'all love me and I love y'all. All right. Yeah. I couldn't help but think about him and what his response would have been. So right here, I found this post from Overton, and it says Scott Jennings annihilates Democrat panel defending MS-13 gang member. Yeah, I just can't believe it.
do you mind if we go back to a couple of points points that were made on the Garcia case. I think you guys need to understand, for the Trump administration, there's no version of this man's life that ends up with him living in the United States. Here's the way they view it. He's an illegal alien from El Salvador who came to the country illegally, who has a deportation order, who, in their view, and in the view of some immigration courts, has an affiliation with MS-13.
The case.
I'm telling you that their view of it is that
Public.
it's an El Salvador citizen who was sent back to El Salvador, who was in the country illegally, who, according to some people in his long process, which does include an existing deportation order, believes that he has an affiliation with MS-13. As I said, there's no version of this man's life where he comes back. And let me say one more thing. The people that want him brought back need to understand something. If the president of El Salvador releases him, and we do facilitate his return, when he lands in this country, one of two things will happen. He will be arrested, and then he'll either be sent back to El Salvador, where he is now, or some other country that I promise you don't want to go to. He's not going to be allowed to come back and live in this country as though he is a U.S. citizen. He is not. Two issues. On the Secretary of State making a comment, the reason the administration believes they got a big win at the Supreme Court is because the district court was trying to compel the executive on foreign affairs. The Supreme Court threw that out. That's not what the Supreme Court has ruled. And what Marco Rubio is saying is true. The courts have long recognized that they cannot compel the executive on foreign policy matters. That's number one. Number two, what they also believe is that politically, the American people want them to be as aggressive as possible and pull all the levers they can pull to solve a crisis that has festered for years. And we keep calling this guy Maryland man in the press. Nobody seems to worry about the Maryland mother, Rachel Marin, who was murdered by someone that the previous administration let out of jail.
But not by
this is a visceral political issue.
I'm not gonna lie, man. Scott Jennings being on CNN is honestly a treasure. This man is underpaid. I'm going to tell y'all right now, he's underpaid for what he does and what he provides. CNN even went on to, I don't want to play, I mean, I could play it for y'all. I don't want to sit here and be rude, right? And mention it and don't at least give y'all a glimpse of it. However, they brought on, CNN brought on the wife of the mistakenly deported Maryland man who's tied to MS-13. I'm gonna show y'all this, man. We might run through the whole thing. I don't know. Let's just see how it goes.
Jennifer, our hearts go out to you. We're not using Jennifer's last name, by the way, for privacy reasons.
Uh-oh. Look, y'all looking at me. My bad. This video, I would put a thumbs down on this video just because of the editing.
Thanks so much for joining us. But give us a sense. It's been weeks since your husband was deported in error. How are you and your kids coping right now?
We're very hurt. My kids ask daily, when is Dad coming home?
And you can't give them.
So heartbreaking to just hear her voice,
answer, right? Because the White House is still fighting to keep your husband in El Salvador, despite a court order explicitly protecting him from deportation to El Salvador. I want to take a listen to what the Attorney General said yesterday.
It was an administrative error as to why he was deported. And he is a known gang member. ICE testified he was a gang member, and we believe he should stay where he is.
Jennifer, what do you say to these accusations that you just heard from the Attorney General that your husband is a known gang member?
They're wrong, because my husband is not a gang member. He's actually an amazing father, an amazing husband. That's who he truly is.
Jennifer, when was the last time you actually had a chance to speak to your husband? And what did he say about the living conditions at that prison there?
The last time I spoke to him was March 15th, when they were about to abort a plane. And since then, I haven't heard from him.
What did he say to you? What was that like on March 15th? Bring us into that conversation.
He told me to take care of the kids and to be strong.
I know you are being strong, and you're suddenly finding yourself being a single mother, not knowing the fate of your husband. He had that protective order in place from a U.S. judge. What was the concern back then of him going back to El Salvador, where he now finds himself?
I fear for his life.
Why?
Because they took him to a place where they took him back to a place where they say they would never take him back.
And what is your biggest concern with that?
Is he still alive?
Why is she looking to the side like that?
Is he okay?
Have you heard anything directly from the Trump administration, Jennifer?
No.
They don't communicate with you at all? They don't
was-
give you any updates, nothing?
No.
You said the last thing you heard was what?
That the judge had granted for him to return by Monday. But that was not the case.
I know, Jennifer, you're a U.S. citizen. Don't you expect...
All right. Well, we got the gist of it, y'all. We got the gist of it. I just think it's crazy how they're trying to sensationalize this. I mean, you know, she could go to where he is. Look, we're human. We're empathetic in the sense that we don't like the idea of families being separated without context, just generally speaking. So as a human being, I can empathize with that. However, despite that, he's here legally. And how long did you know that? All these years you was here, why didn't he try to take the time to... Y'all be safe, man. Go check on somebody today. You could be saving their life. Thank y'all for the comments, likes, and shares. Y'all greatly appreciate it.